Sarah, you can let them out, I'll put the hose across. Hi folks, I'm Roger Long from White Lake Cheese and welcome to our goat milking parlour. Some of you who logged on early may have wondered what you were looking at. This is the back end of a goat. This is the udder and this is where the milk comes from. I'm just going to put this unit on the goat so you can see how the milking occurs in a minute. Hopefully I'll just pull this around to the side so you can see inside there's a silicone liner. It gently squeezes like a mouth and that slowly allows the milk to come out. So it doesn't really suck the milk out, it mimics the mouth of a baby goat or a pig. So that's very gentle on the goat and we'll just leave her milking. I've got a couple more to do here and then we're done. So we'll just leave her milking. You can see the fresh milk now in this bowl coming through. I'm hoping you can hear me. It's quite loud in the milking parlour, so I'm either deafening you or all you're doing is seeing my lips moving and no sounds coming out. But thanks for coming and watching us on this Great British Cheese Weekender. So we're going to just look at this goat for a little minute and see the milk coming out, and then we're going to go out into the yard in the barn where the goats live, and I'm going to show you how we make some cheese. It's going to be a little bit like Blue Peter with some here I've done before stuff, so it happens in a much shorter space of time than normally. I couldn't quite move time, I haven't managed that. So we're going to move round now, and she's finished now, so that was quick. So she's given a litre this afternoon. So that's it. That's how quick it is to milk a goat. Much quicker than a cow, and much cleaner than a cow. So we'll head out this way, follow me round. Hopefully we won't trip over the steps. They said don't move the camera, but we've broken that rule already. So the milk comes into this room here in these two big bulk tanks where it's cooled instantly, and then it's nice and fresh for the next day when we make cheese with it. So follow me. What a glorious weekend to be out. I hope some of you are streaming this in a pub garden somewhere. And this is where the goats live. So they're all really excited to be on TV, as you can tell. Okay, so we've got some little demonstrations here of the various processes that we have to make Eve, which is a soft brie-style goat's cheese, washed inside a brandy and then wrapped in a vine leaf. If you could hear me, do thumbs. Oh, you can't do thumbs up. It's only a one-way thing, isn't it? Send a message if you could hear my voice, people.
Someone said we can hear you perfectly.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So, in these tubs, I've got cheese at various stages of making. So, in this one here, I've just got milk, and we put some of this in there, which is a bacteria, and that's called lactic acid bacteria, and that turns the lactose in milk into lactic acid, which acidifies the milk. So that's the first part of the cheese making process after the heat treatment. So that's already been acidifying for a bit. And then in this little bottle here, I have what's called rennet. So this is a vegetarian rennet, so all our cheeses apart from Catherine are vegetarian. And I'm going to put a very small amount in this 2 litres of milk, and then at the end of this filming you'll see that it's turned from a liquid to a solid. And it is a very, very small amount of rennet that's required. That was probably 10 times more than is required normally on a larger scale factory like we have on the farm, but just to make sure things move a bit quicker, that's how much I used. So I'm just going to ask Storm to come in a bit closer now so she can see what we've got here. So what we've got here is some curds and whey that have set into what's called a junket. So this is now a solid, so I can stick my finger in there. Oh, it's cold and wet. And then just lift it up, and you can just see the lovely, what we call a lovely clean break in the curd. So that means it's ready to cut. So all we do, this is just a kitchen knife, don't tell the ex-wife. And then we just cut it. And the cutting's fairly quick, but normally have a sharp knife, and depends how big a cubes you cut, that also changes what sort of cheese you're making. So we do horizontal and vertical cuts because we're looking for, in this case, sort of inch cubes. This is not the ideal way to do it, but if you're making cheese at home, this is a perfectly adequate way of doing it. So I'm just trying to see what time it is. Okay, we've got plenty of time. So that's now cut. So let's go back to the milk. So we put the starter culture in the milk, we leave it for an hour to acidify. And after an hour we add the rennet and let it set into a solid. And then once it's set into a solid, an hour after the rennet's been added, we then cut it, which is what I've done there, and this one. This one here I cut some time ago. And as you can see that the curds and whey have started to separate. And what I would do now is just gently stir this to help break the lumps up a bit more and help get more of the whey out. Now, in the factory, we do this on a slightly bigger scale, but we just do it with bigger hand tools. Everything we do in the factory is handmade. The only machine we have is a dishwasher, because washing hundreds of cheese moulds a day is back-breaking work, and I don't really feel it affects the artisanal nature of the cheese making that we use a machine for doing the washing. So that's nicely stirred up now, so we'll leave that for another 20 minutes, and then in true Blue Peter Buck style, here's one I stirred twice before already. So I have these moulds, which is what we use for our little lilies, which become Eves, and then I just gently scoop the curds and whey out. I'm hoping you can see that, and it just gently drops into the mould. And it's very important that this is a gentle action, because if you're too aggressive with the curds, you break the curds, and then you can get all sorts of off flavours in the milk. So it's a very slow and gentle process, which is why it's best done by hand. You know, there are factories where this is all done by shiny robots, but you tend to end up with a very bland cheese. So I'll just tip the last bit in. Normally we'd be doing this with 200 litre batches. So we do lots of small batches of cheese every day, so that we can keep control of the product, because the milk changes a little bit through the seasons as goats are pregnant or not pregnant, whether they're freshly kidded or whether it's a sunny day or it's a cold day. And particularly at the moment with these really cold nights we've been having, the goats haven't liked it, because a lot of them shed their fur a month ago because it was lovely and hot and sunny and warm and they thought it was summertime, and then suddenly it's turned cold and they're cold at night, so they're eating more food now, but unfortunately not producing any more milk. So we measure the amount of food we feed them very accurately to ensure that they have enough food but that they don't get fat, because a bit like humans, if you just put lots of food in front of them, they will just eat it, and that's not good for them. So as you can see, that's fairly full. The liquid is slowly coming out. It is a slow process. And then in more true Blue Peter style, here's one I did. I did this about half an hour ago. So this was full half an hour ago, and it's sunk down to there now. Normally we turn these the next day, or we turn them once after a couple of hours, but we turn them out of the mould the next day, and it'll be normally down to about that sort of level to give you the right thickness of cheese. But what I'm going to try and do, which is probably not a good thing to try for the first time on camera, is turn it now. Whoa. So you can see it's a bit blancmangy. Okay, so that wasn't too bad. I didn't drop it, which is always a good sign. So that just helps speed up getting the whey out. I'm just going to move these over here because the trough has got quite a lot of whey out, which will restrict the amount of whey that can come out. Oh, that's brilliant. I did say turn your phones off. Right, okay. Someone ringing me up wondering why there's a man in a white coat standing in the barn. It's me, don't panic folks. Okay, so that's pretty much the cheese making process now. After this, it's just a case of time. So we would turn that a couple times after we've made it, and then we would leave it in a warm cheese room overnight. So temperature's a really important thing. So today these curds and whey here are a lot cooler than we'd normally have in the cheese room. Normally we keep it at about 34 to 36 degrees in the cheese room. The air temperature in the cheese room is normally sort of 25 and above. It's a very warm, lovely environment in the winter. Sometimes not quite so pleasant in the summer on a very hot day. But that affects how the cheese makes, which is why sometimes cheese you've had that's been made in the spring will taste different from cheese that's made in the summer, which will taste different from cheese that's made in the winter. We don't have a cheese factory that we completely control the temperature and humidity, so we'd always get a bit of a variation through the seasons on the milk changing, but also the room temperature changing. That affects how the different bacteria grow at different rates under different temperatures, so some will dominate more at different times different times of year. So that's the cheese making. Now if we go back to the one I added milk to earlier, hopefully, fingers crossed, it's set. I'll just check with my, oh look at that, that's lovely. Okay, so I don't know if you can see that. That is now, if I put my finger in it, it doesn't sink in, it dips in. So it's not set enough to cut. If I stick my finger in there, it sort of comes up, but it comes up in bits rather than the nice clean break we had before. So that's setting. This is one that we set before, and this is got a nice clean, well, it's actually overly set now. It's hard to break it. So that's been set for too long. Now that's not a disaster if you were cheese making, but you then have to do the rest of the process slightly faster to get the acidity change to correct itself. Beg your pardon. Goat dust, marvellous stuff. Okay, so that's kind of the cheese making process done. And then what we get from that at the end of the day, or the next day, is this lovely thing. So this is a lovely little cheese that will become the Eve. Now at the moment it has no mould growth on it at all. It's fresh out of the mould. It's been salted, so you always have to add salt to cheese. A lot of people think salt is unhealthy, but too much salt is unhealthy, but you don't really get any flavour from cheese unless you add salt, and it's very important to, when we're experimenting making new cheese, to get the right amount of salt. Some people like more salt than others, and we have to find a happy medium. So that's the cheese at day 2, effectively. This is the cheese at day 7. So I'm just hopefully you can see in the light there, we're just starting to get this lovely white penicillin mould growing on it. So you've got sort of a cream colour, and then it turns this lovely white. So that's the start of the penicillin mould, and that takes a week to get to that point. Then we have here this lovely wrinkly cheese. And this is quite an old cheese because unfortunately we used all the other ones up. And this has got a lot of mould on it. So this is probably a little bit further on than we'd normally wash and wrap it in a vine leaf. But we forgot to leave any unwrapped for today, I'm afraid. So that's what we have, and then I'm just going to show you how we wash that in cider brandy. So this is a very small sample of cider brandy from the local cider maker at Burrow Hill. It's the only cider brandy in the country, I think, these days. I remember several years ago the French tried to trademark the word brandy, and he kindly pointed out that they couldn't because actually he makes cider brandy, and brandy making originated in the UK. So we just put a very small amount of cider brandy on it, and all that does, what that does is it slows down the growth of the white mould. And
one person has a question. Do
Yeah.
you add the salt after moulding and draining? And that is by Jane Cass 65.
Yeah, so we add the salt after draining so we add it the next day. So the day after we make it, the cheese comes out of the mould. It's quite solid then. We salt both sides, or you can put it in brine to salt it there. And it takes quite a lot of experimentation to find the right amount of salt per cheese for your particular recipe. And everybody's recipe will be different. You can use my recipe if I told it to you properly, but you would make a different cheese from me. It's like cooking. You give chefs the same recipe and you'll get different products. So it's down to your personality and how you make things, and also to the milk. But yeah, salt goes after. With a hard pressed cheese like cheddar, you add salt when you're making it at milling time. So soft cheese, you add it after. So, lovely cheese covered in cider brandy. And then we have these lovely big vine leaves, which bizarrely come from America, because we can't seem to find vine leaves in this country that are the right size or are soft enough. They tend to be too woody. So I think the varieties that we grow. And that's actually pretty neat for me. I'm not normally that good at that. So I'll show you one that my staff did earlier, which is much better. And then I'll show you the one job I cannot do on the farm and the cheese room. And that's take that and turn it into that. A beautifully wrapped Eve. I cannot wrap cheese to save my life. So no one gets Christmas presents from me because I can't wrap them. So that's that.
We have a question again.
Yeah.
So, well, Helen Jerome said, "Oh, did I hear cider brandy?" And then Ted followed up with, "How do you decide whether to salt or to brine?"
So it tends to be, if you're small scale producer, it's easier to salt, I think. If you're only making a few cheese, it's just less wasteful to salt, because when you brine, you tend to throw the brine away after a month because it gets a bit yucky. But if you're on a larger scale like us, just the physical action of doing this over hundreds of cheeses a day, it's not something I can cope with, and it's not something I'm prepared to expect my staff to cope with. So it's more of a volume issue. Bigger French factories I know have dry salting machines where the cheese passes through a salter on a conveyor, which again is a lovely thing, but we're not big enough to do that.
We got more questions coming in.
Okay, fire on the questions. I'm just going to cut into this now.
Okay.
I think I'm eating it already.
So we have a question. What is the difference between Eve and the driftwood with the ash coating? And then asked, when does the ash coating go on?
Okay, so they are completely different cheeses. The only similarity is they're both made with goat's milk. The Eve is what you've seen today. That's what we call a rennet set cheese, in that we use rennet to do most of the firming, the coagulation of the curd. With driftwood, that's what we call a lactic set, so it's a much more acidic curd, and much of that coagulation is done by the acidity rather than rennet. So it's about, in a lactic cheese, we use about 1/10 of the amount of rennet that we use in a rennet set cheese. So that's the primary difference. We charcoal, so we brine our lactic cheeses just because we find that gives us more consistent salt level through it. And then we dip the driftwood in a liquid charcoal. So we liquefy the charcoal, we get a very thin coating then. The trouble with sprinkling charcoal on it is you can actually get quite quite a lot of charcoal in places, and we just find it's more consistent to do it in a liquid. So it's after it's been brined that we charcoal it.
Right, while you're cutting that, the Cheese Academy is saying, loving this, thank you, Roger. Then we've got Keith, who's asking, what is the story behind the names, especially Rachel and Eve?
Okay, so my business partner, who I started the business with many years ago, had a lady friend called Rachel, and he hoped she might go out with him, so he thought he'd name a cheese after her. They're still extremely good friends, but I don't think she's ever been out with him. Eve is just, we actually, because we were wrapping it in a vine leaf, we thought it kind of looked like a fig leaf, so it was an Adam and Eve thing. But we tried wrapping it in a fig leaf, but fig leaves don't taste very nice, so we've stuck with the vine leaf. So
Awesome.
That's where the names come from.
And then Ali Tuck, I think they may have missed the beginning of our video, asked if the goats were hand milked.
No, they're milked by a machine, but the machine is placed on by hand. Our cow's milk comes from a farm where they have robot milkers, and if they could make a robot milker that was goat proof, I would have a robot milker for goats, but no one's ever going to make that goat proof.
And also, I believe that this video afterwards will be uploaded to the British Cheese Weekender site anyway, so people can watch the beginning if they missed it.
If you missed any of the bits at the start, refer back to the video, which will be, well, I think it will be up on our Instagram stories as well, won't it? So you'll be able to look at that. So this is the inside of the cheese. Now this is still very young. We sell our cheese leaves our factory here with 5 weeks shelf life on it. So if you look on the back of a cheese, I haven't got a label there, it'll have a use by date, and that's not a throw it away on the day after date. That's a use on date as far as I'm concerned. That's when a soft cheese particularly should be at its ripest, and it's best to eat. The problem a lot of people have is they can't resist. They buy the cheese and they can't resist eating it, and so they eat it before it's ready. So having a cheese and keeping it until it's ready is a difficult job, I know, to do when you've got a lovely cheese in the fridge. The trick is buy from really good cheesemongers, or if you're having a party and you want a ripe cheese, see the cheesemonger the week before and say, I want a ripe cheese for next Friday, and they will put one aside, and that's the big advantage of buying from a cheesemonger. They will get cheese ready for you. That's their job and that's their skill. I'm just going to bite this now. So that's very young, but it's still absolutely gorgeous. And for some of you who may have noticed the chopping board here, I'm just going to move the cheese off it. These are available on our website at whitelake.co.uk with a nice laser cut label there, and you can have whatever you want within reason written there. We had some very rude messages about COVID last year written on them.
Someone has asked as well, they asked a while ago, but I thought I'd let you finish. Yeah. What is the story behind the name Catherine?
Okay, so after Peter developed Rachel, his friend called Rachel, I saw Catherine Jenkins performing at the Bath and West Showground, which is right next door to where we farm. And her voice made the hairs on my neck stand up. And at that point we were developing a small raw milk cheese, and I thought Catherine was perfect for such raw power of vocal cords. So it's named after Catherine Jenkins. But I'm not stalking her. There is no legal proceeding there.
Awesome. So we still have 9 minutes to go.
Oh, we still have 9 minutes to go. That's fantastic. Okay, so what we're going to do is just going to walk around and have a look at the goats a minute, folks. I also talk a lot quicker than I expected to. So, I could just pan around this way a little bit. So this is what they're fed. Sorry, I'll come this way. So they're fed hay, which we buy from other farmers down on Somerset Levels. And we particularly like this sort of hay because down on Somerset Levels they only cut the grass once a year for hay. There's no fertiliser on it, and we get all sorts of really interesting plants in there as well that we wouldn't have on the fields where we grow grass here. The land here is extremely lush, so it's very hard to grow grass for hay. We grow great grass for silage and wheat and maize and things like that. But for our goats, we found that the hay we can get from the Somerset Levels is really good, and they love the different textures of hay.
We have some goat questions.
Yeah.
And a cheese question. So, firstly, what breed of goats do we have?
Okay, so we have lots of different breeds, and we don't have any pure breeds. They're all crossbred. So this lovely goat I'm stroking here is a white goat, and that's a Saanen breed. But she may be partly crossbred with something else, but white tends to be the dominant colour when you crossbreed. If we pan round a little bit, we'll see a sort of a light chocolate brown one there, and that's a Toggenburg. And then nicely positioned behind her, there's a black and white goat, and that's a British Alpine. And then hopefully somewhere, we might have to turn around to the next pen. There's one just there. It's got a lovely brown goat, which has got a beautiful black stripe down the back. Now they're my favourite goats. They're called French Alpines. Our breeding is switching more over to that style of goat. They're a lovely, hardy, smaller than a Saanen goat, but the milk they produce is fantastic for cheese making. It's a better quality protein with more flavour, and as more of our goats become that type of goat, we will see improvements in the flavour of our cheese. And interestingly, if you just turn right here, you'll see some sort of golden coloured goats, which some people would think would be what they call golden Guernseys, but they're not, because golden Guernseys are very long-haired goats. Those are that's what happens when you cross a Saanen with a French Alpine. Sometimes you get this beautiful golden brown colour, and they are lovely looking animals. And I like to see variety in the colour of goats. I don't like to see a whole herd of white goats that's dull. They have more personality if they have different shapes and colours, I feel.
We have some more questions coming in. Queso Fine Cheese are asking, how many goats do we have now?
Okay, so because when COVID hit last year, we reduced our goat numbers just because we didn't sell any cheese for 2 weeks, and we really had no idea how long it was going to last. We were very lucky in that we were able to sell all our soft cheese to people like Fine Cheese very quickly, who did a fantastic job with their online sales. We set up our own online shop as well, which has helped. We primarily made hard cheese for quite a long time, but because we reduced our goat numbers 12 months ago, our numbers are now below where I'd like them to be at this time of year. We're probably only milking about 400 at the moment. We've got 300 that are about to start kidding in 2 weeks' time, and then our milk production will go up. But I think that the key thing this year is folks, if you want cheese, get your orders in quick, because the industry is going to, we are expecting big orders once the restaurant's open, so order early.
Okay, Ted has also asked, do we only use our own milk?
So for the goats, we generally only use our own milk. At the moment, we're actually frustratingly having to buy milk in because demand has picked up a little bit earlier than we thought. So for the next couple of weeks, we're buying milk from a neighbouring goat farm, which we're lucky to have nearby. The sheep's milk we buy from a sheep farmer, because I don't milk sheep. And again, the cow's milk we buy, the Guernsey cow's milk we buy from a wonderful organic farmer just down the road as well. So yeah.
Wonderful. We've got a question here. Do the goats go outside of the barns?
The goats aren't supposed to go outside, but they are quite good at escaping. If someone forgets to shut a door or there's a slight damage to a panel, they will get out. The main reason we don't there's several reasons we don't let our goats out. This area is a high TB risk area from all the dairy farming in the area, and if goats get TB, it infects the whole herd very quickly, so it's a really high risk to us. So that's one of the major reasons why our goats don't go out. The other reason is, when we first had goats, we did let them out. The trouble is, the ground here is generally, apart from at the moment, is generally quite wet, and they don't really like it, and they have no immunity to worms. So we started getting huge health problems, and we don't like using drugs to combat those problems. So no, our goats don't go outside. They are in the big barns where we bed them up with sawdust and straw.
Okay, we've got another comment here. This is so good. I love the goats. I have 10 driftwoods here to deliver round our village for the virtual quiz and tasting this week.
Fantastic.
Someone else has said this is 1,000 times more interesting than the Carabao Cup final. Thanks.
I'm assuming that's a football reference. I don't even know what Carabao is. So yeah.
Awesome. We still have 4 minutes to go.
Okay. Right. Let's go and see some more goats that are just chilling out in the sun. Well, not in the sun actually. One of the strange things with goats is very few of them like lying in the sun. So you'll see, if you pan over this way, you'll see a few lying in the sun, but most of them prefer the shade. So although goats quite often come from hot countries, they actually prefer cooler. And if you look in the bedding, you probably won't see it in the detail on the camera, but well, you can see that goat's pouring there. So we bed our goats with sawdust rather than straw. We always used to bed with straw, but if you look at goats in Africa and places like that, they're on a fairly dry bedding normally, and we thought, well, we'll just try it, and they seem to prefer it. We get less foot problems with them on the drier sawdust bed than with straw. It just seems to work very well. They don't need the fibre of straw, even though when we bed it up they would always eat a bit because they've always got hay in the big racks ready for them. So we're very happy with the sawdust. And with all the house building that's going on, there is plenty of sawdust available, whereas straw prices at the moment are ridiculously high because everybody's short of it.
Oh, we got some more coming in here. Oh, I've missed quite a few comments. Hang on. Not a question, but please say hello to Pete from Canada. We first met 15 years ago on the farm, and it is wonderful to see how the business has grown.
Pete from Canada?
I'm just reading the message. Please sort out Brexit for us. Another one, really interesting talk. Thank you. Great to learn about your cheeses and their development. Someone else said, hello Roger, great job. You can come teach my cheese course at Lucca anytime.
Lucca in Italy? Who's that? Is that Helen?
It just says Sapori.
Okay, so that's a lovely lady called Helen Jarman, and she runs these fantastic cheese courses in Italy. They're not really aimed at cheese makers like myself, and I think when I first went, they were a little bit worried that I would know more than them, but I learned so much from going to small farms in Italy where we were basically watching people hand milking a goat into a bucket, sticking it on a gas burner and making some of the most amazing cheeses. And from that first visit we developed a whole load of our Pecorino style cheeses which have won multiple awards. So really good courses. It's a fantastic, and Lucca is a stunning city. That whole area of Italy is amazing. So yeah, I can recommend the Sapori courses to anyone who's ever looking to do a bit of cheese tourism in Italy, and they do fantastic mozzarella course. And I have learned to make mozzarella in Italy, but I still haven't managed to do it here. But watch this space.
Right, we are at the end if you want to tie it out.
Okay, well thank you very much for listening to me rabbiting on about my cheese and goats. I am very passionate about what we do here. I take good care of my goats. I find them fascinating and interesting animals, and I think we develop some great cheeses. So go to whitelake.co.uk and see our fantastic range. Cheers.
British cheese.
Oh yeah, support the British Cheese Weekender. I don't want to mention that earlier.